And for our final conversation this morning, we have none other than Bill Hornbuckle, CEO and President of MGM International. Please welcome him to the stage. Hello. Hi. So good to see you. I love Las Vegas. I love being here. I cherish every trip that I get to be here. But let's play a game. This is my version of fun, okay? Yes, let's play a game. True or false, people seem to have forgotten what a blockbuster year 2024 was for Las Vegas tourism.
Kind of false.
Kind of false?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Look, I look back at 23 and 24 as we came out of COVID, and I reflect all the way back to 2006 and 7. And if you look at those in real dollar terms compared to today value, they were probably the best 2 years the industry's ever known. You go forward, and as we've come out of COVID, the whole push to luxury, the whole push to additional spend, 23 and 24 were magnificent years. And so, obviously, as we sit here in 25 and everything's comparative to last year, because that's just the nature of the beast, it was an amazing year.
I think I should refine it a little bit more, because when I look at some of the stories, and there have been numerous, about the big question mark around Las Vegas, I don't see that nuance discussed quite as much. So I looked into the numbers a little bit. Vegas hit a record number in 2016, visitors, 42.9 million. Last year was only about a 3% difference off of that record, which is huge. And so when do you expect that you could see the numbers close in on that record again, or even top it?
Hopefully in the near future. Obviously, we've had it's been characterized, I've said this word, a rugged summer. We all know what's happened with Canada. We all know what's happened, particularly in this market with Spirit Airlines, in terms of the seats being removed. And so we are coming out of that. But as I look to the future, I think about literally the next 16 months are going to be the best convention months the city has ever had or ever seen. And so what's on the books, not only with MGM Resorts, but the community at large, literally is facing up to be the best 16 months. And so with that as a foundation, you think about the programming that consistently comes. I look forward to something like Formula One, I think, which can be another tremendous success. It continues to build on itself, and I think we've got that aligned and going in a really good direction. I think of all the other activities scheduled for the first and second half of next year, all positives. And so, look, we remain bullish on Las Vegas. Fundamentally, I don't think it's broken in any way, shape, or form. And I look forward particularly to this convention drive pushing us to the next step again.
I love a good convention, as I've mentioned. I think there's some concern about potential short-term impacts. No, I really do love being here for conventions. For the government shutdown, are you factoring that in at all for at least year-end estimates? Where do you think we'll end the year?
Look, obviously, we saw as late as yesterday in the news, FAA, people aren't going to work. And so that's going to have an impact. These things historically have been short-lived, and I think that's how we think about it. So we're not modifying programs because of it. We're not modifying opportunities because of it in terms of what to offer consumers today. Obviously, if it lingers on for a while, there'll be an impact. I think there's a broader impact to U.S. travel. Every week this thing is closed, it costs the travel industry close to $1 billion. And obviously, we participate in that. And so it's meaningful. To the extent we get all back to work and we get everyone else back to work, it will be helpful. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at changing anything we're doing or how we're doing it over the near term for today.
So you started wearing this new hat in February. You're selected as the national chair of the U.S. Travel Association, which
Great timing, huh?
Well, you're very. Congratulations. So from both your vantage points then, unpack for me the complexities here, because I'm trying to go beyond the headlines of a lot of the comparisons that Las Vegas is a leading indicator of where the U.S. economy is going. Are the comparisons accurate? Are they overblown? How would you characterize the way that Las Vegas?
Yeah, it's a very volatile time. Mm-hmm. Back up, I think, to national. If you go back to 2016, and I'll think first and foremost, not foremost, but first about international travel. Mm-hmm. We had a $50 billion surplus with the world on travel. Today, it's a $50 billion deficit. So over that 9-year period, we've literally lost $100 billion of surplus travel into the country. We had aspirations to hit 90 million visitors internationally. We're going to be in the 70s, give or take. And so, yes, it's off. It's kind of fascinating. What the administration has done and from time to time continues to do is we'll take 2 steps forward. I think about the big, beautiful bill. In that bill, there was $12 billion for the FAA to begin to fix much of the infrastructure that desperately needs fixing. It's a start. It's a meaningful start. They put money into technology. And so in the big scheme, money is going into some of the right things to be sure. Other side of the coin, we had then asked for a $250 visa increase. So to get a visa from a foreign country, if it's a first-time visa applicant, it's about $400. So take a family of 4, I'm at $1,600. And so we put these impediments out there that for now we hope to have on hold as we understand where we are and where we're going. And so it's some good and then some stuff that we got to really take some time and energy and get behind and try to legislate our way to a different place.
Well, you're in very different rooms, but all key rooms that would lead to decisions that would change these, whether it's in DC or here. As you look at the factors contributing to some of the loss of travel into the US, is it mostly contained within this sort of anomalous year that we're having, or are there deeper concerns about the way America is perceived outside of our shores?
Probably a little of both. Look, I think the approach, the messaging that we give, whether it's here in Las Vegas or the community at large, has to be welcoming. We have to say, we have 9 years of the most amazing things that are about to happen. We've got 2 Olympics coming up. Obviously, we just had the Ryder Cup, interesting as that was. We've got the World Cup coming up next year. There are massive opportunities for America to reach out, say you're welcome, and please come. There's probably $100 billion at stake in just those events alone. And it'd be an amazing place for all of us to step up and make a difference and make a welcoming message. I don't think the administration doesn't want to do that. It's formed a special group to go after that, which we all participate in. And so I think its intent is there. I just think some of the policy and some of the rhetoric pushes us in a little bit of a different direction. We got to be cautious of that.
And so how do business leaders try to overcome that, to offset what's out of their control?
Well, it's not always like pay attention, have a voice, be present whether it's in DC or local or regional, be present. And it's not always easy, to your point. There's only so much you can do. But I think what it means and making sure that we translate to people what something means to an environment, or in this case, a country, is very important. 1 out of 13 jobs in America is supported by our industry. 1 out of 13. It's a big deal. And travel, if you go almost anywhere else in the world, there's a sports minister and there's a travel minister. We have neither in America. The way it's spread today, Secretary of State has something to do with it. Homeland Security has something to do with it. Commerce has something to do with it. It's scattered. And because it's scattered, to get one voice sometimes is difficult. We need to be that voice.
And I think there is some movement in Congress, a bill this summer that was passed to try to use sports as a way to increase diplomacy. I want to get back to Las Vegas just for another minute before we return to the bigger issues. I know, there's so many. When you see foot traffic moving to regional casinos, I know you're tired of talking about the story. I get it. But is there one thing that Vegas has over regional casinos and areas that that the city should do a better job of, and what really more can be done?
When we say do a better job,
sure.
You go back and you just reflect on your own comment. 23 and 24 are amazing years. Mm-hmm. We've brought in PASPA and a bunch of other things have happened. The opportunity now for this community in the sports world that we're in is fantastic. I went to a Chicago Bears game 2 weekends ago. Literally 60% of the fans in that stadium were either from Chicago or they had the colored shirts on. And so while Mark Davis isn't always happy about it, as a tourism driver, what the city is doing has been very, very meaningful and pushing in the right direction. We have a lot of regional casinos, Maryland, et cetera. They don't have the opportunity to have the kind of events we do. And it's, what are trip drivers? What makes someone come to this market versus, I'm in here, so I'm going to go see a show. But what are the things that draw me here to begin with? We have been good, and we're going to continue to be good about pushing and promoting that kind of activity. We've got, additional conversation around Super Bowl. We've got the NC Final Four coming up. We've got the college football championship game coming up. We'll have plenty of activity.
I don't, I already disclosed very clearly, I love being here. I also, I'm not a Gen Z, okay? I mean, you're hearing reports about partying being down, right? That they don't feel financially secure. And, I think the first time that I came to Vegas, I think what happens, here stays here was like the appeal. I was like, oh, great. But now that that's changed and everybody is focused on AI or digital, how do you compete against those forces where people are so glued to their screens that they're not wanting to come out of their houses?
I would just argue against that premise
Okay.
at its very core. They do, and I'll give this example. So Las Vegas did a fabulous campaign 2 weeks ago. It was basically a campaign that the city got behind, we got behind it. We drove, in our case, 285,000 room nights in a 5-day period. The rest of that was up 70%, 7-0, from the week before. So it is about value, it's about opportunity, and most of that travel will occur this year. And so people do pay attention, they do want to come here. Yeah, there are all those concerns, and yeah, millennials drink plenty. Don't drink as much as millennials, or at least I do, I can assure you. All that said, at its fundamental core, we have an amazing attraction here, and people are continuing to come, and we're excited by it.
Aside from sports, and I want to talk about hospitality too, but that's such a big part of your business. What's been new and novel with the experience of being here and amongst all your properties?
Look, I think most of the folks in this room, obviously, are highly educated in the industry. A place like Bellagio, literally 70% of our revenue is non-gaming. And so that continues. And so for us, the opportunity to go get the Carbones of the world, and we went to London, we're bringing a restaurant called Giancana, which is an amazing Indian restaurant, probably one of the best in the world, to continue to provide the product that people motivate at every age for, is critical. Sports has been part of that journey. Obviously, the convention track I've just mentioned is part of that journey. We have to continue to be appealing. I haven't completely figured it all out yet, but Area 15, which some of you see on the other side of Highway 15 here, they report to have 3 million visitors last year. So Las Vegas continues to offer the kinds of things people want to do and see, and I think that continues.
Well, let's double down on your own playbook. I took a tour yesterday of your family Feud studio. I was very excited to see it. It's the first interactive game show of its kind to be broadcast live from a Las Vegas casino floor. The studios were really high-tech, and I was really impressed by it. This is part of your omnichannel strategy. Talk more about that flywheel.
Yeah, so, as part of our digital effort, if you think about, and you just heard from, obviously, Peter and Jason, what is it that differentiates us? What is it that can put us in a different place? Well, for us, it's omnichannel. It's the idea that I can take your digital experience and bring you something online. Well, how do we manifest that? How do we magnify who we are? Well, one of the thoughts is if we can do, and we are now doing, if you go to the MGM, there's a studio on the casino floor. There's 13 or 14 games in this studio. It's like twice the size of this stage. We have a game show. We have live games. But think of that eventually maturing, because we're just learning the business. It's nascent days where it's tied to celebrity. Imagine every Tuesday night you get to play with XYZ from the MGM. And so the idea it's got MGM brand brings instant credibility to it. The fact that it could be tied to celebrity gives me the value and the notion of entertainment. And the connection to MGM gives me an opportunity to potentially come and enjoy a brick and mortar experience that I don't get digitally online. And so we're very excited by where we are with that space. It's very early days, and we're going to push hard into it.
And I know you're very proud of MGM's performance as well. You've talked about this, and part of kind of the expansion of the gaming conversation that you've heard me talk about with the other two gentlemen on stage, you have a very clear perspective on prediction markets, and that gambling should also remain a states' rights regime. You said earlier in the year, if we don't handle this correctly, it's going to be the cement that's being poured for the federal government to enter the space. What is the healthy line between innovation, federalism breach?
Look, I think particularly in the digital space, whether it's us, FanDuel, DraftKings, or many other competitors, there's plenty of innovation. The idea that you could put a product in a marketplace that now, particularly as late as last week with Michigan, we've been told to stand down, clearly. But you can get a product in a marketplace that's unregulated in the context of gaming, not context of trades, not taxed, is competitively a major disadvantage for us. And so when we have gaming regulators in 3 states now telling us, don't do that, we have no choice but to take a position. Are we following it? Would we be a fast follower if for some reason it were to break through? Absolutely. But it does invite, go back to the earlier comment, good homework, by the way, it does invite the notion that the federal government will step into our space. And that is something this industry has historically and categorically said thank you, but no thank you for decades.
But right now, with the activity, what's going through your head as you're seeing all of this develop with this period that we're in?
Look, and you heard it, I think, starting with Betfair, obviously Peter has 20 years of experience on this. Even in that marketplace where it's mature, it's a single-digit market share game. The products aren't anywhere near as robust as what we all offer. And so until that matures to that point, if it's allowed to mature to that point, it kind of is what it is. Look, it's interesting, it's fascinating in many respects. That being said, it's something that we all need to take a very close watch on and really understand what's going on. Look, it's going to make its way through its court. I think there are 11 or 12 cases. There's 7 states with attorney generals that are after this thing. We'll see where this all pans out.
One other issue facing the industry with respect to kind of regulation and policy are the new taxes that are coming in. Do you think that will impact like some of the higher volume players, the professional poker players?
Oh, you're talking about the 90,
Yes,
100,
the 90%.
the 90, 100% thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think particularly the professional poker players and people who, quote, really pay attention, I think there's going to be an impact. Look, we're doing everything we can through appropriations and other measures and means to try to get that pushed and get back to where it was. I don't think the intended consequence of that was more meaningful than I think people anticipated. So we have a lot of lobbying efforts around trying to push that back to where it was.
And so just to be more specific too, what specifically are you worried about? And is it fewer?
It just changes. If you're a professional poker player and you know the odds of the game, that is a differentiator that makes it not as profitable.
You think they'll change their own behavior and habits and patterns?
I think we have to play this out first before that happens.
And what are you considering sort of internally, right? Is there a way that you're trying to navigate potential outcomes of the efforts that you have to either, I don't know, create different kinds of innovation to entice people to come back? Are there things
On this subject or just in general?
on this subject with taxes?
Yes, but no. I'm not going to go
Okay.
there.
Well, and I also say this because you've given a history of adapting to a lot of these regulatory shocks. That's also, I'm trying to draw from your past experience of navigating some of these periods. Is it just patience and grit?
Yeah, and look, I think, again, I mentioned it earlier on some of the broader subjects. It's the same thing with this. Let's make sure that legislators know exactly, members of Congress, what this does and what it doesn't do, what it means and how it impacts our industry. It's just, just the way it's set up, it's just wrong. I mean, you're taxing something that there's no gain on at the end of the day.
We have to wait and see.
Yes.
We have to wait and see.
Yeah.
I have intentionally only designed one question around AI for this entire hour. I think there's a lot.
Thank you for that.
Yes, I mean, there's just other things obviously going on with your industry, but I just want to know where it might most meaningfully change the guest experience.
Sure.
Whether it's forecasting demand or even optimizing your own operations. How are you seeing that already play out?
We see it through, whether it's a bot or a call center, on the front end of our customer experience. And so we've deployed energy, effort, beginning to deploy product into, if I call down to talk to a concierge and I want to do this, I need a pillow, all of that. If I call a call center, we've gone from almost 400 call center agents to 90. Because the ability of it to track what someone wants and satisfy, only 20% of people who call our call centers want a reservation. The other 80 have a question or something else. And so it's become very productive in the context of solving people's issues. Look, at some point, we'd love to get it where, and you're still always going to need human interaction, but at some point where it drops down and it says, okay, thank you for those recommendations for my girls' weekend, now book it. That's the part we're working to get to the next tier on. That's complicated because you have all these, I want a ticket to this event, I want a room here, I want a restaurant reservation there, I want to go to the spa here. All that said, that's where this is going, and that's where we're focusing our efforts.
It's reducing that friction and really preloading a lot of their desires, like let's say if they had come back before. I want to end on a topic you already talked about, but as a forward-looking, future-looking question for you, in terms of the mega decade of sports and how the US might be ready for it, but also what it means for the gaming industry. What do you expect to see there?
Look, I think both the Olympics in LA of note, I think there'll be a lot of ancillary trips in and around the region, and particularly here. So I think we're excited by what that potentially could bring. Salt Lake will be a little different. That's the Winter Olympics at the other end of this thing. I think World Cup next year is the same format. We're unfortunately not one of the host cities because of the size of the pitch. But there will be, and there are already, activity cases around groups and people coming to visit Las Vegas as part of some West Coast journey as they come through America.
And in your lifetime, what's been the best bet that you've ever made?
Best bet in the
It could be professional or personal in your life. Was it a bet on yourself, a bet on a particular event or incident? And
No, there's a bet on. There's two people in my team that I'm betting on heavily. I'm guiding them through hopefully a place that's a journey and ultimately get someplace that's meaningful. And so far, after several years, because this is not an overnight sensation, we're on track and on target. I'm excited by that. And so betting on people that I think will make a difference.
I love that. Bill, thank you so much for joining us, for being here. Thank you all. Have a great G2E, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye. Thank you.